a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. As usual, I say thank you to you for joining me, for being part of this journey. And if you're new to the channel, welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. I'm Anah Parreli. If you're a returning visitor, of course, you know who I am, and I appreciate you and I thank you very much for being part of this journey as well. Anyway, today we've got a fair bit to get through as usual. Oh gosh, I've had a few challenges of a positive nature, shall we say, over the last week. So my time management's a little bit skew with. But if you're new to the channel or you're new to listening to these videos, the first thing to remind you is I put timing stamps in the description. So you can just jump to wherever it is that you feel that you want to go if there's a topic of interest there for you, just in case I go off on a tangent and have a waffle, which is quite likely. Now, sometimes on these yarning sessions, I'm going to share with you information that I might have picked up along the way, and I always invite you to actually make your own comments about the information that I share, because it can be to do with the metaphysical world. It can be based upon my training in social work, because obviously I've got the Bachelor of Social Work, and I have done the mental health training and worked in the mental health field as well. So, it becomes a whole big hodgepodge pot of information that we just draw upon. I think some people would probably call upon it or refer to this gathering of information, if you like, an accumulation of it, as basically tools, life tools, really. So depending on what's going on in my life and who I interact with and what might be prompted, that will actually dictate what I'm going to talk about on the Sunday Yarning, and that has happened this week. So without further ado, let's get into the subject for this week. And where I'm going is that there was a pearl of wisdom that was shared with me so many years ago now that I actually can't remember the whole pearl. I can only remember part of it. And this is the way I think my brain works. I don't know about yours, but I'll hear stuff and I'll retain what seems to be important to me at the time. And basically the importance of this pearl of wisdom was, we all get told, have a, reflect, go deep inside and look at what you're doing, what you're feeling, and explore those emotions and all the rest of it. But this little tip actually takes it a bit further. It's one of those occasions where it's like not just, in fact, actually, it does encourage you to look at yourself at all. It encourages you to look at who you've got close to you, who you've got in your circle. And for some people, it might be nobody. That's the bottom line. But for other people, it might be for like-minded people, shall we say. So the point being that when we look at who we're hanging with, there can be that case of our friends and our associations and our connections will either grow us or they will basically keep us stagnating. And when we talk about stagnating, we're talking about, and this is what came to me today, is that I've been a bit socially, if I can speak, reclusive for quite a while now. For those of you that have been visiting the channel for a while, you'll know that I've been attempting to address this because I realised and recognised that it's actually not healthy to spend so much time in isolation, shall we say, because at the end of the day, you don't actually get anybody that's going to challenge you and challenge your way of thinking, challenge your views. So we tend to stop growing, if you like, and it's through the interactions we have with other people that we're able to develop ourselves. So let me just check my notes, because I did write a transcript for this. Of course, I never really stick to it, but I'll do my best. I'll just make sure that I'm checking my notes as I go. Okay, so the point being with this business of coming out of your cave, which is what I've done, is generally we gravitate as humans. I'm no different to anybody else where this is concerned, from what I can gather. What entices us out of our isolation is to be able to mix with people with like-minded values and all the rest of it. And while that's very good, it's not healthy if we actually keep that circle too restricted and limited to only those people with like minds, who think the same, act the same, and all the rest of it, because they don't actually challenge us and stimulate us to grow, unless, of course, they've got, each one of those people in your little group all have that ethos of feeling comfortable to be open, honest, transparent, and to challenge each other without making each other feel bad or people choosing to take offence at what might be said. Otherwise, we're just going to stay the same. You know what I mean? We're not going to truly empower ourselves. So, anyway, going back to the little tidbit, which was, who are you hanging with? It was a little bit more than that. So, let's take a look at that. Now, I think you'll probably find this graphic quite interesting because I know I certainly do. The pearl of wisdom that came back to me was told to me so many years ago, and I can see where it is aligned to this particular graphic. And I would imagine that the lady that told me that even she got it wrong because she was just doing what I'm doing with you now, which is, sharing a long time ago I got told and it just resonated with me. And from her memory, it was a recollection of 4 personality types, 4 potential friends we should have in our circle. For me, the joke of it is she was able to tell me the names or the types of friends of these 4 people, but my memory only holds on to the 3. But when I look at this graphic, I can understand what it is that she was talking about. So when we just have those same people of the like mind, when we keep our circle small, you can see what I mean here, that you're missing out on all these other aspects. Now, don't forget, when it comes to the elements, we're talking about personality types and character traits as well. I'm not going to go right into that because that will actually be quite a long story, shall we say. So, yes, let's take a look at one of the points then. So, ideally, we're going to have a person in our close circle that represents each of these factors. So, water being emotional, metal, you can see there that's gold. You're talking about solid stability or whatever. Earth, of course, is grounding. And if we were talking about tarot cards, actually, we're talking about cups, pentacles. Fire is the wands, the work stuff. And what is the other one? I'm having a mind blank. Cups is water. Pentacles is earth. Fire is... Right, the other one is swords. So it's a little bit confusing. I think the swords are actually associated with the metal, which is decisiveness, actually. But either way, the important factor for this conversation on me sharing this information is not to actually tell you this is what it looks like and this is how it is. It's actually to open an area or a space for you to reflect upon what does it mean for you, because my interpretation, once we start looking at energy, this is where I think potentially conflict can come in, because we all develop an understanding of something, a topic, a word, a name based on our own experiences. And so because we're not all the same and we don't all walk the same path, we're going to have different interpretations of things as well. So it's the theory here I'm just putting to you for you to have a reflect upon, as part of helping you to grow and achieve your potential and find your life purpose. So, within all of our circles, it's really important that, and just to remind you too, that relationships are reciprocal, it's not completely one sided. There is give and take within all of them. And so, let's say if you had that one person who was logical and rational here, who was a bit of a strategist and all the rest of it, that will be their strength, okay? But what might be their weakness or their vulnerability might be emotional expression. And that might be where your gift and forte lays, or lies. And this is the interaction and the play of energy, if you like, and the balancing. So you might be able to... It's not like you sit there, just so you know. We don't sit there and calculate and think, okay, strategist, I need to get that person as my friend and what I'm going to offer them because this is an energy business planned out transaction. It's not like that. The universe tends to take care of it. So if your circle is small, you would energetically put out to the universe, especially if it's things like you struggle with boundaries or you struggle to rationalize. Don't believe that stuff where people say that you don't use your logical mind. There are times for it to be used. You don't shut that bit down as you're doing your spiritual growth. All of it's important, as is being logical and rational. But if you put a greater value personally upon other aspects, which I've done in the past, many years ago. I wish I'd known then what I know now, where I've done the money's not important, it's all irrelevant, all of that stuff. And this is how I'm going to raise my children, to put a higher value on people and emotions as opposed to material assets. I mean, that's a very romantic notion in hindsight. realistically, we have a body, we're on earth, and we do need to take care of those kind of things. So if that's your vulnerability, if you like, we'll call it a vulnerability because it's not your strength. You know, budgeting might be a big deal for you, you might struggle with it. Well, then you would like to have, or it would be very helpful for you to have a friend who can honestly pull you up when you're being a little bit extravagant and say, hang on a minute, I know you, I've known you for a long time now, and I actually know that as much as you think you need that item, you actually don't. It's a want. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day. That were like, and I need, and I'm like, there's a big difference between needing and wanting, okay? Or being guided to make a purchase. That will be a story for another day, actually. That would probably be a good one. But anyway, yes, so we would like to have one friend in our circle that can be very practical, very decisive, very logical, and very rational, and pull us up in a loving way or offer us advice in a loving way. Now, just to be clear, we're not talking about creating dependency here, because the idea is that as that person shares information with us, if this is our vulnerability, that we will take that information on board and learn and grow from it and adopt it into our own personal behaviours. And then as we continue to do these new behaviours, we're going to be less dependent, and the friendship becomes a true friendship, you know, because if we're dependent on a person, that creates other areas for potential conflict. But anyway, so moving on from the business of having a logical and rational friend, which is very important to our fullness and roundness, if you like, of our personality, we need to have other people in our circle. I shouldn't have used the word need. That was an accident on my part, so please forgive me for that. What would be beneficial? So I'm just throwing out some types here, okay? Is somebody who is perhaps a spiritual mentor. If you go to church, you're a churchgoer, it might be your local priest or church leader. If you're not into that kind of stuff and you tend to be in the more new age movement, then it might be what we call a spiritual mentor or a spiritual coach or teacher, but somebody who imparts the knowledge so that you can tap into your own inner wisdom, because the goal is that if we are independent anyway, that we're not relying on other people to tell us what we need to be doing or what we should be doing. It is a fine balance, I might add. So I've done a lot of teaching of people's spiritual stuff, and I found myself the other day, I want to put another nod to Karina this week, actually, because she's definitely challenging me at the moment, which is really good, because she's challenging me to draw upon my memory and share information with her. So where I'm going with this is, we are all teachers. That's the first thing. We are all teachers. When we pick up information along our life journey and then we share that with other people, we're all teaching at the same time. So each one of us, whether it's you, me, or anybody else, we are all teaching and students. We're the perpetual students of life. It's ongoing and it's learning. And so this is why when we have a mentor or a teacher, they don't always agree with things either. So this is where we get the conflicting information, where somebody will tell us something and somebody else will turn around and say, that's not correct, that's not true. And actually, I'm going to use an example of this, because when I think of energetic protection, I think of the sapphire blue color. And I know that there is the white light of protection. I'm not going to get right into this today. I'm just going to say prime examples of this. There are some people that don't rely on the blue light of protection. They go straight for the white light. And then there was, when I was talking to Karina, she said something about the golden light of protection. Now, this is not something that my ear was tuned into, and I immediately was, what are you talking about, the gold light of protection? I know what the gold light is because I've actually seen it, okay? As have many people, but I'd never linked it together in my mind as being a protective colour. But when I think about it, you know, having the new information put to me, this is what I mean about people challenging our thinking, okay? So Karina probably feels, in her opinion, when she opens this conversation with me, that I'm teaching her stuff. But what she's done is, by asking a question, she's taught me something, because I had to go in and reflect on that and reach a conclusion and go, yes, that's right. No, I wouldn't normally have called it a protective light, but now I do, if you get my drift. So we all have capacity to be a spiritual mentor to each other as well, but we want people that's going to grow us in that regard. And, I've got a whole heap of notes here on love and relationships. And the bottom line is, I'm not going to talk too long about it because the video is already going to be long and there's something else I want to speak to you about. But when we talk about love and relationships, I'll do the but, I'll try and be as brief as possible. Love and relationships are expansive. I mean, if you've got children, if you are. If you don't have children and you've got living elderly parents and all the rest of it, these are all relationships. And at different stages in life, relationships can become tense and difficult to manage. I mean, if you're raising toddlers, for example, that can be exhausting and draining. And so it's helpful to have a friend there that's able to turn around and give you some strategies for managing toddlers, as they go into the school years, the teenage years, and so on. It's helpful to have those friends that are not just challenging the way that you're doing things or saying things, but certainly offering you some support. Because, if you haven't got to that stage yet, and if you don't have adult children, one of the people I was talking to the other day, they'll know who they are if they're watching this or listening to this video. We discussed adult children. And when I talk about adults here in Australia, it's aged between 18 and 26. They're considered to be youth or young adults. And from what I can gather in modern times, I don't know what it was like in my parents' generation and before, but those are challenging years as well, because we reach a certain point in our life where we've lived through a lot and we've seen a lot, and we know that we've got wisdom to impart to our adult children. And quite often, the adult children just are not interested in it. Okay. So there's negotiating and navigating the terrain there of putting in place healthy relationships with young people that think that they're actually a lot more advanced in their levels of wisdom than perhaps they are. I say this with due respect. It can equally go the other way. I mean, I've known other people who will complain about adults and, seem to have a valid reason for it. But either way, where I'm going with this is friends can support you to navigate those tense relationships, those friendships, to develop your communication skills, to actually convey what it is that you're trying to say in a nice way, or a way that actually enhances those relationships, especially so that you're not having endings to relationships that you want to actually sustain. Nobody wants to have a great big emotional traumatic split if it can actually be a relationship that's salvaged and conflict resolved in positive ways. Either way, I guess where I'm going with this particular conversation is we want to know that the people that we keep close to us actually value us as much as we value them. And so it's important to be able to express that to people. And sometimes we need a bit of help doing it. And the other thing is too, that when it comes to friends, we want somebody that confident that, or ideally we have that. And obviously this is lacking in the world today, which is probably why there's a space for these overpriced therapists and mental health practitioners where, because people can't find it in their personal lives, the company of people where they can just release and unload of all their confusion, do that talking it out. I mean, prayer is actually a good way to work through this if you don't have a person in your circle, or alternatively, journaling if you're lacking this type of person in your environment, because this is all part about releasing and opening up and allowing new to come in. Excuse me while I cough. But either way, we live in a very interesting world these days, don't we, where most people actually are lucky to have one person in their special circle, because so many people are isolated now and they do most of their socialization through things like social media or over the phone or, in my instance, God forbid, SMS. If somebody SMSs me, by the way, I can't SMS back. I've just got to phone up. It just drives me crazy. But anyway, bearing in mind social circles, I guess this is why, and it's actually timing into this very well. I hadn't planned it that way, but so be it. This is why it's very important to actually have that community connection and to get out the house. So, speaking of community, let's talk about the upcoming event that's going to happen in a couple of days' time. So, of course, you're aware that I can't believe how quick it's gone, actually. So, we had our first one in March. We're now having the second one down at Beaufort Street Community Centre, and this one is happening on April the 9th, which is Wednesday this week. Now, I'm actually really excited about this. Okay, there's a few things. I've taken on board some of the comments by one of the other people that they would have preferred more. And I thought, well, you know what? I can give more. Giving more and more information is actually not a problem, but I need to be really prepared for it and organised if there is going to be any means for me to be able to achieve my goals for the night as well, which I'm creating this as a social event. It's not a workshop. But having said that, I've had some wonderful support from people like Alana. I've got at least 3 people that will be turning up to help me with this event. So when I say help me, this is because obviously I have to set the tables up. I've got limited time frame to do this. I'm providing tea, coffee, and all the rest of it. So this is where Karina's going to play a vital role. Thank you, Karina. She's coming over to meet with me either tomorrow or the next day so we can run through it and get things streamlined. But yes, of course, I like to deliver something that's fairly professional that people are going to enjoy as well. So I've got some paperwork. I've been printing off things like chakra palm cards because I've used them for years. I used to deliver meditation groups and all the rest of it. And I thought, if I can just give some people some strategies and some tips to take home, something solid, well, then that's a good thing. They walk away, they've got a little bit more. Now, the other thing too is I had mentioned that I would not be able to do readings because I can't be both the hostess and doing readings at this event. Well, this is where Karina also is going to help me out. Thank you, Karina. It means that I won't have a lot of time. I'll only have about an hour to maybe do some very brief, say 10 minutes, 3-card reads or a single card or whatever. So she's going to help with that. The other thing too, so this is the other big exciting bit, is going forward, I will always make sure I've got a table of crystals there. And this is what's been happening over the last couple of months, is because I've been doing these videos on crystals and because of this intention to re-experience them, because my crystal collection had become depleted, of course I've started buying. I've started to find wholesalers, and that leads me on to the next slide. But either way, I'm getting some really nice stuff. I'm finding my suppliers. So obviously at some point I will go into doing a fully fledged crystal business, but at the moment it's more scoping. So as part of that scoping activity, I'm going to have a table there full of crystals that you will be able to purchase if you're interested in them. And of course, I'm trying to keep the prices down. That's the whole thing. I've realised there's a lot of graft going on with local wholesalers, and I think it's a bit unnecessary, to be honest, but I'll do my best to keep the prices reasonable. Now, you can have a bit of a laugh about this with the crystal stuff because obviously I absolutely love them. I'm very passionate about them and I thoroughly enjoy them. And I went out this week, I had a lunch with a couple of ladies. And the bottom line is, while we were talking, I shared this with them, and actually they all dropped like flies. It was so funny. And, well, it is funny, actually. So what's happened is I've actually connected. I'm not going to give away my hints or my tips or whatever, but I have connected with a woman who lives overseas in a country where obviously she's doing wholesale crystals and where they have markets. Basically, it's just incredible. You can go along there and buy these crystals at least once a week where people just display their wares. And so where I'm going with this, I said it was so exciting. I said, because I've messaged her at a certain time. Plus, by the way, I absolutely love the fact that she's been completely honest with me. She's now knowing the quality of the product that I like. So just for example, I think this might have been the day I sent her a message and it was like, have you got any rainbow moonstone? And I got back that little laughing smiley face because everybody loves to use their little emoji cons these days. And it was just like, well, of course I do, but I'm not showing it to you. And I was like, well, why aren't you showing it to me? She said, because I know that you won't like it. It doesn't have enough flash on it. I was like, thank you. You know, I would rather somebody say that to me than waste both of our time looking at, tawdry looking product. So, anyway, where I'm going with this is she said, can I contact you when I get back at the office? I said, yes, absolutely, as you do and as you would. She said, I'm more for her. She said, I'm at the markets right now. I'm buying crystals for her store. I'm like, what? As you can imagine. I'm like, really? She said, yes. And with that, she used, she took a video of the stall and showed me some of the stuff that she was looking at and just sent me this video. And I was like, I am so green with envy. I actually would love to go there. So it's going to be on my wish list at some point in time, is to get to where she is and to be able to wander along these markets where all these people are sitting around showing off their crystals. The rock hounds, I guess. Yes. So anyway, that's that. So onwards and upwards now for a channel update. Now, I've got to say, when we come to talking about channel updates, yes, I did load the video on Nuumite, and I can honestly say I am blown away by the response to the short video for this, and I have seen my channel numbers grow since I put this one up. How amazing is that, considering that it's supposed to be magical and I'm wearing it right now? But yeah, anyway, so the Nuumite video has gone up. Also, interestingly, for those that would like to know, when I went out for my lunch with the ladies the other day, we were talking about Nuumite. They'd never seen it. And I realised now that actually a lot of people hadn't really heard of Nuumite. I've known about it for so long that I'm actually surprised that people don't. You know what I mean? This is this funny thing about life, really. If we've learned something, we just tend to assume that other people have as well. But either way, they'd never seen it before. So I was able to show them my piece of Nuumite that I was wearing on the day in my little macrame pendant. And I will actually probably cleanse that tonight. I'll change it. It needs to have a rest, I think. And last week also, you will have seen the Lapis video go up. Now, actually, I should apologise. Because of my time management struggles, what you're seeing is I'm still managing to get the full videos in a timely way, but for some reason, it's been a bit of a struggle for me to get those shorts out on the same day. I like to be as regular as clockwork with loading the videos, ideally, but when I've been doing too much and burning the midnight oil, as they say, I just haven't been able to do it. So I'm going to try and improve on that. I actually have made a fair bit of progress already for next week. And the reason I've been trying to get ahead of my work, if you like, is because I know that I'm not going to have a lot of time next week and I don't want to be late. I want to sort out my time management. So I've just got to record the audio for Green Aventurine, which is going to be loaded next week. You'll see that one come out. Beautiful crystal, a lot of amazing healing properties for that one. Actually, if you're into earth elementals, Mother Nature, Gaia, that kind of thing, you'll be interested in the Gaia video and its metaphysical properties, I would imagine. And I'm currently working on the Blue Aventurine video. I'm doing the transcript and just formatting the video, the slides and that kind of thing. That one's going to go out, well, the intention is to publish this on Thursday. Blue Aventurine is another incredible crystal as far as properties go. Just a bit of a thumbs up if you're not aware of it. I'll give you a little tip here. It's actually really good, apparently, for people that suffer from addiction of all sorts, whether it's substances, smoking, overeating, that kind of thing, or sugar addictions. It's supposed to help build willpower and resolve to change those behaviour patterns and to give you the strength to get through it, just in case people were interested. Anyway, that one's going to be up on Thursday. So if you're new to the channel, you may not be aware that I've got a variety of playlists on here. Obviously, I've been doing this stuff for a lot of years now, and I have become very interested and passionate about different subjects and topics at different times. So anyway, I've got the playlist on angels. If you're into angels, I've got that. It's kind of like an introductory help people to get an understanding of how to work with angels and energy. I've got the mainstream, more evidence-based stuff, which is the health and well-being, self-help. Can't remember which one it is at the moment. I've got the spiritual and faith type stuff as well, where I talk about strategies for managing your energy. I've also got stuff on chakras. I've got the color playlists. I've got numerology. I love numerology. Okay, basically, what you've got on the numerology playlist is the equivalent of a workshop. There is only a little bit more if I was to run a numerology workshop that I would cover, and that actually would be getting the past life information. And to do that, you would need to have a person's, just so you know, birth date and their time of birth, and then you would be able to calculate what their past life karma is that they brought in with them into this lifetime. So that's on there. And then the universal law, spiritual law content. That's just information I found along the way, and so sometimes we unpack it, but use your own discretion, okay? And of course, we've got the crystal magic. In fact, I need to reiterate that use your own discretion when it comes to any of the content I put on the channel, because basically there is no evidence base to it. All of it is about belief. And I can turn around and say to you, like the person next to me, I know this because I have experienced it, but I can't prove it, okay? And knowledge that is experiential is personal. So you might learn from your experiences and come to a different conclusion, if that makes sense. Maybe that's worth a question. Maybe that's worth having a debate about, actually, or just a general conversation. So for now, my friends, I'm just going to say, look, thanks very much for being part of my journey. Feel free to put your thoughts up, your comments. You don't have to agree with me, because I'm not looking for an echo chamber, okay? I'm looking for honest interaction. And if somebody doesn't agree or doesn't believe or whatever, it really does not disconcert me at all, not in the slightest. I'm actually happy to have that interaction. But for now, though, I'm going to say, look, have a wonderful week. Take care. I'm going to get cracking and try and finish off these videos so that you can have them during the week. Take care, my friends. Have a blessed day, blessed week. Bye-bye for now.